He was standing in front of the Porsche with his phone lifted high, speaking to thousands of viewers as if the world existed only to admire him. The camera angle was deliberate. It showed the perfect shine on the hood, the designer clothes on his shoulders, and the confidence of someone who believed attention was the same as authority. I walked toward him with the calm pace of someone who knows the real scene is about to begin behind the performance he was staging. He spotted me and smiled for the camera. Then he threw a rag at my feet as if I were an extra hired to amuse his audience. "Wash my Porsche, sweetheart." The chat erupted with laughing comments. He waited for a reaction he could use for more entertainment. I stayed still. I was not surprised. I was calculating. Behind his playful tone, I could already hear the consequences forming in the background. He stepped closer, lowering his voice for dramatic effect while keeping the camera pointed at my face. "Deaf," he shouted, hoping to provoke me. His viewers applauded the moment, unaware that he had just spoken to the wrong person. I was not the help he assumed I was. I was the person who handled accounts on vehicles he believed he owned. At that moment, I no longer saw a confident influencer. I saw a customer in default. And I knew the next sound would not come from me. It would come from the truck he never expected. He stood there with the confidence of someone who believed a camera could shield him from the consequences of real life. At 19, he lived in a world built on reactions and applause. His audience rewarded impulsive behavior, so he mistook attention for authority. He spoke loudly, moved quickly, and believed that visibility was the same as value. I watched him switch poses for his viewers and saw how easily he confused performance with strength. My world had nothing to do with his. I came from a time when people measured themselves by reliability. We completed what we started. We signed before we spoke. The older generation kept records, honored deadlines, and understood that respect came from consistency. In that world, silence was not weakness. Silence was order. When something was written, it mattered. He did not understand any of this. He believed volume guaranteed victory. He believed compliments from strangers had substance. He believed the Porsche behind him made him untouchable. What he did not know is simple. Ownership does not live on a screen. It lives in the payments that maintain it. I had reviewed his account earlier that morning. 3 payments were missing. Not postponed. Not disputed. Missing. The system had flagged the default automatically. The warning notices had been sent. Every part of the process was complete. So while he shouted for an audience, I listened to something else. I listened to the certainty that contracts never bend for noise. While he performed for his followers, I focused on something far less exciting to him, but far more powerful in the real world. His jokes filled the air, his audience flooded the chat, and the energy around him grew louder by the second. None of it touched me. I was not part of his show. I was part of a process he did not even know had already begun. My attention stayed on the documents in my hand and the account notes I had updated earlier that morning. Every detail mattered. I checked the timestamp on the final notice. I checked the exact moment the grace period expired. I checked the clause that allowed immediate recovery when repeated warnings were ignored. It was all there. The language was clear. The deadlines were final. Nothing required emotion. It required accuracy. He spun the camera around to show the car again, pleased with the noise he was creating. He had no idea that the true decision was unfolding several steps away from him. While he invited his viewers to rate the shine of the hood, I confirmed the last verification on my screen. The system left no room for interpretation. The account had crossed the line that morning. I did not raise my voice. I simply reached for my phone. The call I made was brief. No discussions. No explanations. Only a confirmation of location. At that moment, the activation began, and the live show he enjoyed so much started shifting toward a very different ending. The live stream kept rolling, filling the driveway with a constant mixture of laughter and flashing comments. He was still speaking to his audience when a new sound rose behind his voice, deeper and heavier than anything coming from his phone. At first, he ignored it. He believed every noise belonged to him, part of his show, part of the attention he lived for. But this sound carried a weight he had never heard before. Metal struck the ground with a slow rhythm that did not belong to entertainment. Chains shifted with deliberate force. Hydraulics pushed against the pavement with a steady pressure that announced something final. He turned slightly confused, while his viewers kept typing their jokes. I recognized the sound immediately. It was the arrival of the one thing he could not charm or talk over. The flatbed truck appeared at the end of the driveway, moving forward with patient confidence. The driver stepped out, wiped his hands, and walked toward me with the familiarity of someone who completes this type of assignment without hesitation. He glanced at the Porsche, then at the young man still holding his phone like a shield. "Ma'am, is this the repo?" His voice was calm, almost routine. I nodded once. Nothing else needed to be said. For the first time since his live began, the chat stopped. Not a single comment moved. Even the influencer himself fell silent as the reality he never planned for settled across the driveway like a closing curtain. The driver walked toward the car with quiet confidence, and the influencer finally realized the moment was no longer part of his performance. At first, he tried to laugh, waving his phone toward the truck as if the situation could be softened with humor. His audience typed nervous comments, unsure whether this was a stunt or a genuine problem. He stepped closer to the car and pointed at the driver, still convinced that his voice could redirect the scene back into his control. Then he noticed I was not reacting to him at all. I stood beside the driver with steady composure, reviewing the details in my mind one last time. The influencer's smile weakened. His voice rose slightly, and he asked if this was a misunderstanding. He expected an apology. He expected hesitation. He expected someone to explain why this should wait until the live was over. I kept my tone calm. There was nothing dramatic to add. Yes, he missed 3 payments. Yes, the recovery was authorized. Take it back to my dealership. The instruction was simple and complete. The driver nodded and prepared the vehicle. The influencer's phone trembled in his hand. He tried to address his viewers again, but the words did not come. The chat moved faster than he could read. Some told him to fix it. Others asked if he had lied about owning the car. His confidence drained in front of everyone watching. The live ended suddenly. Not because I demanded it. It ended because he had nothing left to control. After the car left the driveway, the silence around him lasted only a moment. Then my phone began to vibrate. His first message arrived with a cheerful tone, as if the entire scene had been a misunderstanding. He asked for a quick conversation. He insisted he could fix everything. When I did not answer, a second message appeared, sharper and impatient. By the time the third one came, the excuses had started. He blamed his accountant. He blamed the leasing company. He blamed the system that had warned him again and again. None of it changed the facts. I opened the file on my desk and reviewed the timeline with the same calm I had earlier that day. Every notice had been sent on time. Every deadline had been respected. Every requirement was written clearly, without room for interpretation. The record showed 3 missing payments. Each one allowed the next step. Each one confirmed the default. He kept sending messages, shifting from anger to apology and back again, trying to find a tone that would reverse what had already taken place. What he never understood is that the outcome did not depend on emotion. It depended on documentation. The contract required nothing from me except compliance with procedure. There was no debate to join, no argument to win. Paper does not negotiate. It simply follows its path. And that path had already closed behind him long before he realized he should have paid attention. The day after the repossession, his behavior changed again. He appeared at the dealership unannounced, insisting that what happened was an act of harassment. He spoke loudly, hoping the staff would see him as a victim of an unfair system. When no one reacted, he shifted his story. He claimed I had targeted him. He claimed I had misunderstood an agreement. He claimed anything that might create doubt. None of it matched the facts recorded in his file. When that failed, he tried another approach. He went back online and told his audience that the company had wronged him. He said he had been tricked. He said the recovery was illegal. His followers tried to defend him, but every statement he made contradicted the notices he had ignored. His words dissolved the moment someone asked for dates or proof. By the end of the week, he announced that lawyers would contact us. They did. The conversation ended quickly. The attorney reviewed the logs, the signed clauses, and the automatic warnings. There was nothing to contest. Every step had been justified. Every detail had been verified. The case was closed before it began. He never understood the simplicity of the situation. I had not punished him. I had not embarrassed him. I had not acted out of emotion. I had followed the procedure that protects every customer who respects their obligations. I did not take revenge. I reclaimed an asset. There is a difference. If you are listening later in life, you already understand something he never learned. You know that every stage of life teaches a different kind of strength. Youth teaches speed. Experience teaches direction. The trouble begins when someone believes speed alone creates power. It never does. Power is built slowly, through choices that are repeated with discipline. It lives in preparation, not noise. When I watched him shout into his phone, I was reminded of how often people mistake volume for influence. They imagine that attention creates authority. They imagine that confidence replaces responsibility. Those illusions break the moment real structure enters the room. A signed document, a recorded notice, a timeline that does not bend. These things hold more weight than any live stream he could ever create. You do not need to compete with the loud ones. You do not need to chase their pace. You need position. You need systems that work even when you remain silent. Once those elements are in place, the result arrives on its own timeline. You do not have to force it. You only have to step aside and allow the truth to complete its path. Younger people chase recognition because they believe it protects them. Experienced people design exits because they know protection comes from preparation. That is why the final outcome felt natural to me. In the end, the quiet ones always keep the keys.